Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is SportsIQ with Larry Smith.
Hard to believe it is Thursday already. Man, just crazy. Larry Smith here. We got a great show for you coming up. A couple of great guests. We're going to talk to Syracuse basketball in a couple of minutes with our friend Mike Waters from Syracuse.com. Look, they made the big change, right? Autry is out. McNamara is in as coach. Part of a new world there in Western New York. We'll kind of get to the bottom of what they're trying to accomplish there and keep pace, and not only in the ACC, but in college athletics overall. And then a bit later, man, I've been bugging my buddy Mike DeCourcy to come on and do kind of a final wrap-up of college basketball, the season, the Final Four, the transfer portal as we stand right now, and he agreed to join us. So that conversation is coming up later. It is always a joy to have Mike DeCourcy on the show, one of the all-time legends in our field in journalism, and always enjoy his talks. I will tell you, and if you've ever heard our previous interviews with Mike, and we've done probably about a half dozen over this past year, maybe five or six. As you probably can tell, Mike and I could fill an entire hour ourselves. I mean, it is, once we get going, look up and go, oh, we have blown past time. We've got to run, and we'll condense some of the blocks to get it in. So anyway, Mike, we got Mike and Mike coming up. Okay, let's get to a couple of notes today. As you know, today it is NFL Draft Day. Really kind of the second biggest day on the NFL calendar, right? I guess opening day would be one as well, but it's such a big deal. They moved this thing around to different cities. This time it's in Pittsburgh. It's exciting as opening day, right? It's when every fan of every team thinks if we make the right picks, this could be our year. Well, here's a little known fact about the NFL draft to impress your friends as you're watching tonight and over the weekend. The very first NFL draft was held in a hotel room in Chicago. No cameras, no fans, no TV coverage. The very first draft pick was running back Jay Berwanger, who was also the first Heisman Trophy winner, who played just down the street at University of Chicago. Jay selected by the Philadelphia Eagles, who then traded his rights to the Chicago Bears. So how did Jay do as a pro? Well, he never played pro football. Jay Berwanger decided it made better sense to be a rubber salesman than play pro football. Back then, that money just wasn't very much. In fact, only 28 of the 81 players drafted in that first NFL draft went on to play in the league. Only 28. The rest never played a down of pro football. One of those players who was drafted and never played that year was a little-known end from Alabama who was drafted in the fourth round by Brooklyn. You may remember his name, Paul Bear Bryant. There were three Hall of Famers drafted in 1936. Offensive tackle Joe Slidahar was taken by the Bears with pick number 6 of the first round. He was the first drafted player to make his way to Canton. Wayne Miller, drafted by Boston in the 8th round. Danny Fortman, who was drafted by Chicago in the 9th round, also making the Hall of Fame. Fortman, the only player ever drafted from Colgate to make the Hall. The modern NFL draft's just 7 rounds. Back during the 1940s, it was 32 rounds. Fewer teams, by the way, also. That leads us to another little-known fact. The highest drafted player ever to make the NFL Hall of Fame, that would go to Rosie Brown, selected by the New York Giants in 1953 with a pick in the 27th round, the 321st overall selection that year. Brown, an offensive tackle from Morgan State, he made 9 Pro Bowls in his career and was a 6-time All-NFL selection. We know that Francisco Mendoza will more than likely be the first name called tonight in Pittsburgh. So that begs the question, who was the first number 1 overall pick to make the NFL Hall of Fame? That goes to Bill Dudley, number 1 overall by Pittsburgh. Dudley was a running back who could also throw a little, run a lot, and catch some. Dudley also played defensive back in an era when players played both ways, and one year he actually led the NFL in interceptions. Well, tonight the Raiders own that number 1 pick, but which teams have the record for making their first overall selection the most times? Well, the dubious record goes to the Colts and the Rams. Among the Colts' 7 first overall selections, Peyton Manning and John Elway. Remember, the Colts took Elway number 1 out of Stanford. He was also a star baseball player, had a budding career in Major League Baseball, decided he didn't want to play for the Colts, so he held out. They eventually traded him to the Denver Broncos, and the rest is history. So tonight, when you are watching the draft with your buddies, you can impress them with some knowledge about the history of this NFL draft. Let's talk a little college basketball now. Among all the big moves here in the offseason, obviously the coaching change at Syracuse, trying to recapture the magic of the Jim Boeheim years. Mike Waters joining us once again, Syracuse beat writer for Syracuse.com. Mike, good to see you. Last time we talked, Adrian Autry was still there. We felt that possibly there was a change coming. I think that was probably a couple months ago. That change has now happened. And talk about just kind of felt like probably a pretty quick decision, right, from administration that this change needed to happen.
Yeah, it did happen quickly. I don't think it was an automatic move. Other candidates were rumored to be, involved in the search process. Brian Hodgson of South Florida, who ended up at Providence, was a name that was mentioned a lot. Josh Schertz's name at St. Louis came up. Not exactly sure how far, any of those talks went. But when Jerry McNamara, first of all, got Siena to the NCAA tournament by winning the Metro Atlantic tournament and that conference's automatic bid, when he got there, that elevated him, I think, in the eyes of not just Syracuse fans, but maybe even some folks on the search committee and new athletic director Brian Blair. Then when Siena in the first round goes down to Greenville, South Carolina and takes on number 1 seed Duke and is leading at halftime, has a double-digit lead into the second half, and this is with a roster that's depleted by injuries. One player was ruled ineligible on the eve of the conference tournament, a starter. So he was down to about 7 healthy bodies, and really 2 of them were freshmen who didn't play a lot. And he played 5 guys. He played 5 guys the whole game until like the final minute of the game, and a couple of other guys one guy got in. But he was with Duke the whole way. And I think when people saw that, not just doing it, but the game plan that was involved and how they defended Duke, how they slowed that game down, like all of a sudden you're like, why aren't we considering Jerry McNamara more? I think that's really when Jerry became the candidate and the guy for the job.
It's funny that was the thinking there, because that was the thinking everywhere else. I mean, as I'm watching that, and Siena's up at halftime and had a shot to go up 15, but the 2 missed dunks that just wouldn't go in, and the game changed at that point. I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, okay, Syracuse, you need a coach. This is a Syracuse guy. They're a 16th seed that has a double-digit lead on number 1 overall seed Duke in the second half. Why go anywhere else? In fact, I was really trying to think of the last time that a coach kind of used one game to catapult himself into another job. I thought maybe Todd Golden, when he was at San Francisco, was kind of like, again, like, oh, wait, who's this kid? Like, well, he should be going somewhere.
A couple others for you. Dusty May, when Florida Atlantic barely beat Memphis, and then, had a nice run all the way to the Final Four. But, they actually got fortunate in that game. Memphis was not awarded a timeout. Otherwise, Memphis probably wins. And who knows what happens to Dusty May and Michigan, for that matter. Another one was Andy Enfield, Florida Gulf Coast, when they had that run. They had that major upset of Georgetown, and I think it was in the 2013 NCAA tournament. So coaches can do this. A good coach can all of a sudden shine a little bit more light on himself, and to the point where a search firm or a search committee or an athletic director take notice.
Yeah. You mentioned that. I know you broke the story about Syracuse and their next leader of their athletic department. Tell us about him.
Brian Blair, formerly of Toledo, where he was the athletic director there. An interesting choice, a name that was not on our radar for a large segment of that search as it took place. But when you look at him, he's younger, a younger AD, about 40, 42 years old, I think Brian is. So he's kind of grown up and become an AD only in this NIL era. So I think he's well equipped to address it. I like the fact that he came from the Mid-American Conference. So while yes, it is a step up in a way to the ACC, he ran a full athletic department. They had football. The MAC has football. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's really, really important to have run an athletic department that isn't just a basketball only, or is so small that it really doesn't relate. I think the Mid-American Conference, if anybody, your college athletics, you understand what sports is about in that league. Those schools might not be as big as schools in the Big Ten or SEC, but they take it seriously.
Yeah. I think by his selection, Jerry McNamara, it is the university trying to turn the corners. You mentioned the 3 letters that are ruling everything right now, NIL. it's a different ballgame. And I think even with some coaches right now, there are some coaches at Blue Bloods maybe a little bit of trouble right now because they're having difficulty navigating this new world where they don't have all the advantages. And it's a time right now that if you get the right administration and the right coaches and the right philosophy, you can turn things around quickly and can become one of those elite teams. We've seen so many teams right now that have done this. Houston always in the mix. Florida, obviously, with Todd Golden. You mentioned Michigan in there. Arizona's doing it. The Final Four, Illinois. There are teams like that have kind of figured this thing out right now. And I think with this pairing, this is probably a good pairing of a new world, new way look at this evolved world that we have in college athletics.
I think that's what Syracuse fans are hoping for. Seriously, Syracuse has been behind the curve in terms of adapting to NIL and being ready and on board. And they face some challenges too. They're not a big state school. They don't bring in that kind of donations and alumni donations for sports specifically. So they're having to make more of an effort there. And Brian Blair has already come in and he's made a few changes and announced a couple of initiatives. One was just recently One Orange Alliance, just making it easier and simpler for fans to donate. What's the old saying? If somebody wants to give you money, make it easy for them. And
right.
It's been kind of difficult and a little complicated, to be honest, at Syracuse, and a little disjointed. And they're trying to just make it simpler and easier, and we'll see where they go. But certainly the hiring of Jerry McNamara has gotten a lot of fans and donors excited. So I don't know if we'll see it immediately in year one with the roster and how much they have in the NIL. I know it's a little bit more than last year, but let's face it, every college team that matters has more money than they did a year ago. Right. Yeah. Everybody has money. I've been trying to, explain this to a few Syracuse fans as to why they're not doing even better in the transfer portal. Don't they have more money than last year? I'm like, yeah, they have more money than last year, but every player in the portal is costing more money than they did last year. So it's going to take a while. At some point, you not only have to have more money, you actually have to take a leap where you catch up.
Absolutely, because like you said, everyone has got more. I use the Coleman Hawkins story as an example that the rumor was Louisville was going to offer him $2 million. So K-State said, we have to give him $2 million. The $2 million number was never real, but it changed the market where fast forward just 2 or 3 years later, $2 million is now average for a starting player at a Power 5 school. I mean, it's not everyone gets that, but to hear at the time $2 million seemed insane,
right?
And that was literally just maybe 3 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And especially this year on the market, it seems like centers, big men, are commanding so much money. It's almost like being a left-handed reliever in baseball now. It's like, man, if you're 6'10", you're going to make some money.
Exactly. And you wonder if that's what happened with the Badunga kid going from Kansas to Louisville, that they probably offered him some money, and my agent got in his ear and said, "Oh, we could double that," and apparently he did with Louisville. So it sounds like you're exactly right that it's going to take time and going to take a larger donor buy-in. And we're seeing this from schools. And I think that's where we're at a crucial point right now. It's why I think it's so important for Syracuse. If Syracuse had waited 2 or 3 more years, it might have been too late to do this. I think they've got to move now to begin to get those wheels moving, to get those dollars in, because we're already beginning to see a separation of these schools where, like in Indiana football, I mean, Indiana got the buy-in from boosters. They go to the college football playoff. They get more buy-in from boosters in football. They win the national championship. There's a larger buy-in with boosters. And that seems now the arms race, if you will, is just ramping up. And those schools that have money are going to separate themselves. We saw Wake Forest with an NIL budget of $3 million. Well, how are you going to compete with the big boys with that kind of money?
Yeah. And the thing that really separates some programs is beyond the revenue share. Some schools, it's pretty easy for them to come up with a revenue share. And if they don't have, they get a little money from donors. But where you're able to get the money that the NCAA will approve to go to a player is branding. And some of these schools have done a really good job of taking whoever, if they have a rich alumni that runs a big company, like Arkansas's got the Tyson Foods, right? And SMU's got, the oil barons down there or whatever. But you got a brand. And that's when you can get a player a lot of money that the NCAA will also approve. And North Carolina State recently renewed their contract for with Coca-Cola for pouring rights for all the athletic events, right? But in that new contract, there's a part of it that's Coca-Cola is going to go and do branding deals with NC State athletes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think any school that's smart right now is looking at all of their vendors, and as the contracts are coming up, you're going to be writing NIL branding deals into this for your athletes.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned SMU. I've said many times that watch out for the Texas schools. There's a reason why they're doing very well in both football and basketball. Let's not kid ourselves. I want to get very quickly before I let you go. How is Syracuse doing in the portal so far here this spring?
It's hard to tell. They've added 5 players through the portal. They're interesting names. None of them come from Power 5 schools. The closest one would be Aiden Tobiasen from Temple, who averaged 15 points a game as a sophomore last year at Temple. Garway Dual is a 6'5" guard from McNeese State, but prior to that, he played at both Seton Hall and Providence. So he has big school experience, experience in with 2 different Big East schools. He does not a big scorer, but he's supposed to be an elite on the ball defender. And at 6'5", I've heard him described as sort of like the tip of your spear on defense and can be a disruptor out there. So I don't know exactly what they'll get out of him. A few of the other names are interesting too. They just got a commitment from a 6'10" big guy from Appalachian State named Luke Wilson. Not the guy that was in the movie Old School. This guy's completely different. Yeah.
At least he was at a party, right?
6'10", 255. I say he's more like Frank the Tank. So, we'll see what he can add. And then, the real interesting one to me is Gavin Doty from Siena, who played for Jerry McNamara the last 2 years, was really the star of that Siena team. You said you watched that game against Duke, so you saw that kid play just a whale of a game against Duke that day. So Gavin Doty, it'll be interesting to see. And there's interest around here in him too, because he's from right up the road from Syracuse in Little Fulton, New York, which is about 25 minutes from Syracuse. A small little town, not much to it really. No offense to folks in Fulton. I think they would say the same. It's a nice small town and they like it that way. But I don't know if there's ever been a player from Fulton, New York suit up for Syracuse. So there's a little bit of local flavor here.
Yeah. And I thought his social media post immediately upon his announcement spoke volumes. He could maybe be the Pied Piper for this program moving forward as the guy that kind of like it. McNamara himself coming in and kind of being a point person, if you will, for this program. Mike, always good to talk with you and get some insights. Man, a lot of exciting things happening right now with Syracuse. And I think that's good for all of college athletics, considering what Syracuse has meant in the landscape over the past several decades. So it's exciting, and we'll be calling on you again to kind of see how things are going.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. It's always good talking to you. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, absolutely. Always good to talk to you. Thanks, Mike. Have a great weekend. Mike Waters joining us, Syracuse.com, talking about, again, Jerry McNamara coming in, the new AD Blair, and good things happening there in Western New York. Okay, quick timeout. More to come. Stay with us.
Those old golf clubs sitting in your garage right now, there's a good chance they're worth real money. That driver you replaced, those irons you upgraded, even that putter collecting dust. Golf Roots lets you trade them in for cash or credit toward your next set. And right now, SportsIQ listeners get exclusive offers. Take $20 off any order over $100 with code SIQSALE, or get a 15% bonus on your trade-in value with code SIQ TRADE-IN. That means the clubs in your garage could be worth even more. Golf Roots is on a mission to make golf more accessible, offering high-quality, pre-owned name brand clubs for every skill level. And if you're just starting out, the Just the Roots starter set is one of the most affordable ways to begin, with full trade-in credit when you're ready to upgrade. So don't let your old gear sit there losing value. Go to golfroots.com and see how you can start or upgrade your golf journey today. Use code SIQSALE for $20 off or SIQ trade-in for 15% extra when you trade in your old clubs. That's golfroots.com. Golf Roots. Upgrade smarter.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Welcome back. Great to talk with Mike Waters. Mike DeCourcy is still coming up here in a couple of minutes. By the way, all those that stats, that research goes to producer Tony. And as you know, Tony and I go back more than 30 years, our days at CNN Sports. This is the kind of thing that we would do. We both were just like stat guys, and we would work together on shows. And one of us would walk up and go, "Hey, I've got this great thing I just researched and looked this up," and it would find its way into a show. We're working together. So this is old school junkyard journalism research, man. And Tony did a great job. So give Tony props for all those stats. We appreciate it. Hey, a couple of other stories before we get to Mike DeCourcy and a little more college basketball. 51 years since Philadelphia Flyers last won Lord Stanley's Cup. 51 years. If you don't remember that team, they were called the Broad Street Bullies for their very aggressive style of play. It was a time in the NHL when if a fight did not break out in a playoff game, you were amazed. Between 1976 and 1987, the Flyers made 4 other trips to the NHL Finals. In 76, lost in the finals to Montreal 4-0. In 1980, lost to the Islanders 4-2. 85 and 87 lost to the Wayne Gretzky and the Edmonton Oilers. Since that time, 2 other Cup final losses occurred, one to Detroit, one to Chicago, and with the exception of the 2020 pandemic season, the Flyers have not won a playoff series since beating the Penguins 4-2 back in 2012. Well, these Flyers are on a mission. After the Olympic break, the Flyers given just a 3.8% chance to even make the playoffs. Well, that must have made him mad because since then, the Flyers finished the regular season 18-8. Many of the games decided in overtime or in a shootout. The team has said the playoffs for them started right after the break. They knew they had no room for error. Well, they now stand on the doorstep of that first playoff series win since 2012. Again, not counting the pandemic season of 2020. Facing their arch enemy Pittsburgh in the round 1 this year, they've put a chokehold on the series, playing the way the Broad Street Bullies did with aggressiveness and timely goals. Last night, a 5-3 win at home. Flyers now up 3-0 of the series after a brawl littered the ice with gloves and sticks in the second period. A total of 5 Penguins and 5 Flyers sitting in the penalty box. So the win last night, the Flyers' first home playoff win in exactly 8 years. Keep an eye on Philly as these playoffs continue. On the other end of the Philadelphia sports spectrum, the Phillies, a team many thought would be a playoff contender when the season began. They've been anything but so far this year. Last night, the Phillies stretching their current losing streak to 8 games, 7-2 loss to the Cubs. In the 8-game skid, the Phils have mustered just 16 runs. And for the season, the offense hitting just 220, 199 strikeouts, and 806 at-bats. So they strike out once every 4 batters. I almost can't even wrap my brain around that, the math in that. Once every 4 batters is a strikeout. No wonder they're only hitting 220. Figure things out over there. Find out what the Flyers are doing. Do what they're doing. All right, the great Mike DeCourcy is up next. You're on the Sports IQ.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Still thinking college basketball, of course, with the transfer portal coming on. Always great to be joined by the legendary Mike DeCourcy, who is soon to retire. Mike, I want to talk about that in just a minute. But first, great to see you in Indy at the Final Four. Michigan, yes, the national champion. Your thoughts on the season that ended just now? I thought the tournament was as exciting as we've seen, especially now that it's the new rules are in place. You don't really have the Cinderellas like you used to. But I thought it was a fantastic tournament.
I thought it was, and one of the reasons I loved the tournament was because it was played up until the Final Four the way basketball is now played. And what I mean by that is that we have gotten almost completely away from the garbage charges, from the overly physical defense, bumping cutters and stuff like that. We've gotten away from a lot of that, and it's made the basketball so much better, so much more attractive. And, of course, we have more skill in the game now because players aren't abandoning college basketball at such a rapid rate as we saw 5 or 6 years ago, just because players needed to get out and make some money. One of the interesting things about the way we've seen the game change over the last 5 years is everyone assumed cheating was rampant and players were getting all this money. Well, if that's the case, if that was the case, then why were they so desperate to get away from college basketball in 2018, 19, 20, 21? And now they're so desperate to stay in it now that being compensated is legal.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that there were things happening, but I'm not sure that it was ever quite as lucrative as those who wanted to embellish those stories made it seem. Because if guys were getting hundreds of thousands of dollars to stay in college, they wouldn't have been running to let's go make 30 grand in the G League, you know? Now those guys are desperate to stay in college and hopeful of the 5th-year rule that they're discussing at the NCAA level. You see Thomas Houck. Thomas Houck's return to Florida is one of the most shocking developments I've seen in my time, 40 plus years of covering college basketball. Thomas was going to be a first-round pick. He'd played 3 years, developed beautifully. There are only a few more things he could do with his game, really, at the college level. So this was purely about, one, I'm being compensated at a very high level, and two, I want to win. And even though he's already won. So that said a lot, too. Alex Karaban, I'm a huge fan of Alex at UConn and what he was able to do as a collegiate and his taking a shot at a 4th national championship and his number going in the rafters. I'm applauding all that. But Alex didn't have Thomas Houck's pro possibilities.
Right.
So the fact that he did that says so much about the college game now.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing all of this happen. And so I think it's been great for the sport to see the level of talent continue to increase.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of mid-major angst about the fact that it's so difficult to maintain a program now. But I keep wondering, although I'm not a fan of multiple transfers, you're still going to lose the great player on the one-time, if it's a one-time transfer, at least a good number of them. And so I don't know what the alternative is. Should you be should you be held captive because you weren't recruited at the high major level and all of a sudden you turned out to be great and the high majors want you? I mean, think about the number of wonderful stories that we've seen, players who got the chance to play at the highest level and excelled and became pro prospects because they got those opportunities. Obviously, the most obvious example of that, Yaxel Lendeborg, but there are dozens of others who are getting similar chances because they got the opportunity to play at the highest level of college.
Yeah, I think of last year with Walter Clayton Jr., was someone who came from Iona, went to Florida, won a national championship, and ended up being a first-round pick. To your point, I mean, that's one where, coaches can leave. Will Wade,
right,
almost in season. I mean, I agree with you. It kind of brings me to the next thing I want to talk about is the transfer portal right now, and it seems like I'm obviously this is still very new, and we are still figuring out the rules and how this is going to go. I think the fact they pushed it back and didn't open it till after the season was over, after the championship game was played, was huge because it allowed the focus to be on the actual games themselves. Yeah, we know, look, we're not naive. There are third-party conversations going on in January, right? I mean, we know that's happening. But in terms of the player movement and coaches, I didn't hear stories of coaches working the phones instead of coaching their team for practice before a regional final game. The focus was actually was on the court.
Yeah, I mean, last season, the 24-25 season, I got the opportunity to talk to Mark Pope the week that they played Tennessee in the Sweet 16 in Indianapolis. And I was amazed that he took the time to speak with me, given that he was, one, preparing for Tennessee, and two, also having to work the transfer portal, but he made some time, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it was, to talk to the Sporting News. I was very impressed by that. But now, if I want to talk to Mark Pope or any other coach, they only have to, if they're willing to, take time away from preparing for the game, but they don't have to have that other factor, which is so important, that they need to get the roster built for the following season when they're trying to talk to me or they're trying to prepare to play the Tennessee Vols or any other team. So I do think that's much better. They could probably improve it a little bit more by not opening until the Wednesday after the championship game. I know Dusty May talked about having to immediately plunge right into the transfer portal because I believe the portal opens at midnight on the Tuesday. So they're still standing on the podium watching one shining moment.
Right.
And meanwhile, everybody else is making phone calls or whatever they do these days in recruiting with Snapchat or whatever, however they're contacting their prospects, they're doing that while a team like UConn is commiserating about the defeat, and the Wolverines in this case are still on the floor celebrating or still in the locker room celebrating. Shouldn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I saw one report. I think you're talking about the same thing where Dusty May's assistants actually scheduled a 2 a.m. Zoom, like hours after the time, and they finally said, "We're just going to just reschedule this." Like, yeah, like to your point,
yeah,
give them at least 24 hours to. It's not going to hurt to do their 6 p.m. the next day or whatever the case is. You're exactly right. What did you see about the player movement that? What stuck out with you? I thought teams like Indiana and Texas. Really making moves to really build not just their lineup, but their roster. And of course, Louisville kind of seeing what Michigan did and saying, hey, the boosters putting in a lot of money to go out and try to grab this all-star team to take them to the next level.
In some ways, for me, it's not as much, what struck me more was some of the players that left. I mean, Flory Badunga, first started basically every game he warranted starting and was put in a position where he was Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. And he's working with, as Illinois fans know, a guy who really knows his way around teaching big men. Mm-hmm. And he decides to leave. And I what happened there? I'd love to know what happened. Like, did Kansas say, we're going to pay you X and that wasn't enough? Did Flory just decide he didn't want to play for Bill anymore? Did he decide he didn't like Lawrence? I don't quite understand what happens in a circumstance like that. And then to me, in a similar vein, but a little bit different, was Eric Ribe leaving UConn. Was that a decision that UConn made because they thought, we need a ready big man, a guy who's already shown that he's ready to do this, as opposed to a developmental big man who's going to need a little bit of time to transition from 10 to 12 minutes a game to 28 to 30 minutes a game? Those are questions that I'm very curious about, what leads to departures. And I don't think that honest answers are going to be readily available, because the player doesn't want to look like he got rejected, and the coaches don't want to look like they ran off players. So some of that is fascinating to me. Obviously, what Louisville did is impressive. What Indiana did is impressive. But the most impressive things to me, as I mentioned before, with Thomas Houck staying and Alex Condit staying, and I think Ruben Chinaloo eventually will return. He's going through the draft process, which I don't know why everybody doesn't go through the draft process. Yeah. That has a chance. Yeah. Because I think there's a great experience there to be had. I for decades have compared it to a summer internship. It's a little bit shorter than most, but it's the same thing. You get your feet into the professional world. You see what they're about. You see what they're valuing. You have these one-on-one conversations with those executives and coaches, and you can take that back with you to Florida. So I'm all for Ruben going through that, but I expect him to be a Gator. And what's happened at Illinois with when the Ivisic brothers and Merkovich decided to return, not surprised. Jason Davis, not surprised. But when you saw on top of that, Andrei Stojakovic also decide. I mean, Jake started ahead of him almost the entire season. Mm-hmm. And I don't know exactly how they're going to position this, how they're going to put the the rotation together, but he signed up again for the possibility of coming off the bench again, and still is willing to do that. So I was very impressed by Illinois' ability to retain so much of their roster. Michigan State, I expected that. I expected the roster to remain in place because that's the culture that they've built and the expectation that they've built, that the guys who leave are probably guys who aren't playing. Yeah. And that's going to be 95% of their departures. Yeah. And Illinois, I'm not saying that they haven't built a great culture, but this was new to all of the players I mentioned except Tomislav. Mm-hmm. They all were new to the program, and they said, we want to stay a part of this. I think that's an awesome endorsement of Coach Underwood, his staff, the Illini basketball community, that all of them are going to be Illini again next season.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree. It's something that we don't see. We see with other more established programs, but not with Illinois. You're exactly right. Talking with Mike DeCourcy, Sporting News, Big Ten Network, Fox Sports as well. He does it all. It gets into that. You mentioned Flory Badunga leaving Kansas, and I want to talk about the Blue Bloods right now and where they fit in this new world. Kansas, Duke, North Carolina, Kentucky are kind of the four, I think, established. UCLA still there, Indiana, but those are the four right now. UConn's new to the game. Where do they sit? Were those four, and Duke still recruits on a high level, but those four, it felt like always had an advantage. And you look right now at like some of the top tens, the way too early top tens, only Duke is in there. And to your point, Kansas, I think, losing like 8 players to the portal. They're Kansas. And it's Bill Self, a Hall of Fame coach. Where do they stand right now? It feels like the advantages they've had over the last 30, 40, 50 years may not be there right now moving forward.
I think to an extent they have disadvantages now that they have to overcome themselves. And I'm not, and in all honesty, I don't think that it has to be overcome internally. I think the external issues are problematic for those teams. They expect to be great. Okay, I get that. But you don't want to pay. You don't want any of the pain on the way to being great.
Right.
That's you change coaches in Kentucky's case. You change coaches because John Calipari isn't getting you where you want to go any longer.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of that. I said it then. I'll say it now.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a fan of that. I thought that showed an extreme degree of impatience. But they decided to make that move. Well, so they don't want the pain with the new coach transitioning in either. And so the first year, they get a nice year. They get a bunch of transfers. They go to the Sweet 16. Everybody's happy. They bring a bunch of other transfers in the second year, and a bunch of them get hurt.
Yeah.
And so they're not as good. They do still get into the tournament, and they do still win a game. But now they're into their third year, and the transfer portal's not going as well. So now they're even angrier. Yeah. And I think that's a burden.
Yeah.
That the fans at Kentucky or at Carolina, those two in particular, and Indiana to a lesser extent because their burden's been built up over now multiple decades.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they all have to understand that what they have is a tradition and a history that is cooler than anybody else.
Yeah.
Like Michael Jordan. I just watched the film that they made about 4.7 seconds from the championship about the 2016 championship game. And they showed Michael in the crowd wearing his Carolina blue sweatshirt and cheering the unbelievable Marcus Page shot that was then superseded by the Chris Jenkins shot.
Right.
And so that you have Kentucky, you have all those guys running around the NBA playoffs now. And you need to lean into that and say, we're going to make you so happy that you became a Kentucky Wildcat and so happy that you became a Carolina Tar Heel or an Indiana Hoosier. This is going to be the best place to play because that's all you've got right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's got money. You've got tradition, but it doesn't mean as much as money.
Yeah.
So make the tradition matter in the positive way, not in the demand sense. We need, we want. But we give. You're gonna feel like special here.
Yeah.
Like at Alabama, which now has a great basketball program and has won a bunch of games and made a Final Four as recently as 24. Okay, Sweet 16 last year, I think. Sweet 16 this year.
Mm-hmm.
So they've won a lot of games there. They might have been Elite Eight in 25. But anyway, but you go to Alabama and you're still not as cool as the football guy is. That's never going to change, right? Yeah. Yeah. But at Kentucky, you can be embraced in a way that no one else can. But it's not happening right now. I mean, the random Kentucky fan, the regular Kentucky fan that comes across someone on campus like Malachi Moreno, they're going to be really cool and they're going to be, wow, we saw Malachi and all that. But I'm talking about some of the online stuff, some of the Twitter stuff or message board stuff. I know this for a fact. There has been at least one instance of a coach from another program printing out some of the Twitter comments or social media comments that Kentucky fans have made about this past team and showing it to other recruits saying, this is what you're signing up for if you go to Kentucky. I mean, that's a new breed of negative recruiting that's unlike anything we've seen before.
Yeah.
But I think that those programs, they have to flip their expectations and demands until they get themselves rolling again. And then maybe you can start to get a little bit particular about whether or not your coach ran the right set to get this victory. I mean, even at Duke, they have I think that they are ahead of the game in what I'm talking about, because I wrote a column after they lost to UConn criticizing the relative absence of high-end point guard play at Duke over the last dozen years. They had Tyus Jones in 2015, the 14-15 season, their last championship. They have been led in assists by someone other than their point guard in all but 3 seasons since then.
Wow.
And that's saying you've got, that's not saying you've got Penny Hardaway playing small forward for you.
Right.
Like it's Grayson Allen playing shooting guard and leading you in assists. It's you running the ball, the offense through, not like Cooper Flagg and Cameron Boozer, man, those guys can ball, right? But you don't want to run your offense through them. You want them to be your offense,
right,
and then to play out of that as a secondary option.
Right.
And instead, they ran their offense through both those guys, and they won a ton of games. But when it really mattered, Cameron Boozer's got the ball in front of the Duke bench with 1:20 left, and it falls right out of his hands without real defensive pressure.
Yeah,
it falls out of his hands. And then on the final play, Caden Boozer, who could have been maybe that guy if they'd said, here's the ball, run our team. They did not do that. They said, okay, now that Caleb Foster's hurt, you're going to be in the game, but you're not our point guard. You're a guard. And the ball still goes to your brother when it matters. And in that last second opportunity when maybe a guy who played point guard for 35 games just turtles, gets fouled, goes to the line, makes a couple free throws, game over. He tried to pass the ball forward to open players in the front court, gets it deflected, and they lose the game.
Ball game. Yeah, no, exactly. Mike, I'm running out of time. I want to talk about you for a moment. 36 years at the Sporting News?
I've been with the Sporting News since, actually, it's 31 years.
31. Okay.
This was I started in the November 95, and so that was the first 5 years where as a freelancer. So I've been there full time since 2000. So it'll be 26 years. It would be 26 years in September if I got that far. But the World Cup will be the last event I cover for the Sporting News. I'll retire subsequent to that.
Okay. I could spend another half hour asking you about that. At some point I will. I'll find you this summer once you do retire, if you'll give me a few minutes. What will you miss the most as you look forward to retirement here in July? What do you think you'll miss the most from this as being one of the and you know, we talk all the time, my admiration for you. What's the thing you think you'll miss the most once you hang up your laptop?
Well, I'll be honest with you. First of all, I'm not totally. I'm going to be semi-retired.
Yeah,
so all the things that I would miss, I'm still going to do.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that a lot of what I would. I just can't say that I'll miss anything because the interactions that I've had subsequent to the announcement that I'm going to retire, from people in the game, out of the game. It's just been amazing. It's been an amazing experience. At the Final Four, lots of people come up to me and said, nice things. And the more that it happened, the more I kept thinking, when I'm back here in Detroit, these people are all going to be saying, I thought we got rid of you. Like, why are you still here? So I'm not going to miss having to go to my desk every morning at 8:00 and create content and try to do the best I can. Those are the things I'm ready to not do any longer. And the things that I love, including continuing in some relatively minor capacities for the Sporting News. I'm still going to do the All-America team. Okay. We're one of the 4 components of the official NCAA team. us, the AP, the National Association of Basketball Coaches, and the U.S. Basketball Writers. I don't want to see that go away, so I'm going to continue to administer our All-America team. The things that I love about being associated with TSN, including the people, one of the things that I miss really is I work with an unbelievable team of people there that for 31 years, like almost never anybody that you wouldn't say, hey, can you come to dinner at my house or can we go have coffee? It's just wonderful people. But I haven't been able to be in the office with them ever. I mean, this has been my office relatively, because there have been a couple others, one in Cincy, one in Indy. This has been my office, just me, for 31 years. So what I miss is that I never got a chance to be in the newsroom with those people every day.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this, as somebody who was in Indy, got a chance to say hi and took a picture with you. That was very important as well. When I see you, I'll be happy to see you, that you're still part of the game. I will miss not seeing as much of you, I guess, as I'm going through my daily stuff here and there. But Mike, always great to talk with you. Appreciate your insights. Enjoy the World Cup, and hopefully we can talk again soon.
Absolutely. Anytime, Larry. All
right, my friend. Thanks so much. Mike DeCourcy joining us once again. He is the Hall of Fame basketball writer, the Sporting News, Big Ten Network, Fox Sports, and we appreciate he's a friend of SportsIQ. More to come after this. Well, guys, we were laughing in the break. I mentioned earlier, producer Tony and I go back to our CNN days. I mean, he began in the late 80s. I got there in 93. And I was always very eloquent in my lead-ins. And sometimes we didn't have the time for that. And Tony would walk up and say, listen, 3-finger lead-in, 3 fingers, that's it. He would put his 3 fingers like on my screen, like this is as long as it could be. Remember that?
Yep. Had that on a regular, had that with a couple of anchors there. Just, some were okay with it. Some were like, I know, shut up, go away.
But I got so much to say. People want to hear what I have to say. So, all right. So our fun continues. Obviously, Tony and I, and Josh as well. We have a lot of fun doing this every day, Monday through Friday. NFL draft tonight, Tony. And I know, as we said before, it's one of the big days. It's always been draft night's always a big moment. But I give the NFL credit for making it just a spectacle. Yeah. And I think it's really cool that they have done this, moving it around. And it just makes a big moment even bigger.
Yeah, I can't wait to see, being in Pittsburgh, when the Cleveland Browns come up with their first card, I can't wait to see the reaction of those fans out there. That should be quite interesting. Or when the Raiders pick number 1 and more likely going to take Mendoza. Can't wait to see those Pittsburgh fans react to that. But it really is a spectacle, and it's well done. And it's interesting for the fans. You want to know what's going on. There's a couple of trends I want to see is, when do we get that first run, and what position is it going to be? Every year, especially in the first round, you get somebody makes a move that causes everybody's draft board to go kaflooey. Right. And then you start seeing, like, if it's a cornerback, then you'll start seeing cornerbacks flying off the board left and right and center. So who is that going to be? That's one of the things I'm looking for in this draft, is who's going to be. And I'm also looking to see how many trade downs there are. We've talked with Walter Cherepinski a number of times. This draft is just not that deep. There might be only 8 or 9 guys that have first-round grades. There might be only another 10 that have second-round grades. And then everybody else is, just considered mostly depth with some starters available. Yeah. But we're going to have to see. The trade thing could be really interesting. I think you're going to see a lot of teams try to jockey around for more draft capital next year, when the draft is expected to be much deeper.
Right. But you're right, that domino effect. And how's it going to affect the players? There's some players who may think they're a late first rounder, but something else happens and they get pushed middle of second round, and that's dollars. I mean, it's a big deal. And then on the reverse, one guy is taken, it's a surprise, and all of a sudden, like you said, that starts a run on that position.
Yeah, and we'll just see what position that will be. I mean, the most coveted positions, Larry, we all know, defensive backs, because of the way the league is so offensively pass happy. Offensive tackles, because you have to keep your quarterback upright. And then quarterbacks. I only expect 2 going in this first round, and I'm not even sure Ty Simpson is worthy, but that's for debate amongst other brighter minds than mine. So
Yeah. We'll spend several million on him, then, go be it. It's your money, not ours. We do know one thing that will be very unique. Fernando Mendoza, the number one overall pick, obviously, is who we expect to go to the Raiders. Heisman Trophy winner out of Indiana. Storybook career in his single season there in Bloomington. Will not be in Pittsburgh. As you know the story, his mom battling a debilitating disease, hard for her to travel, and so he's going to stay in Miami to share the moment with her and his family. And so you will not see the traditional number one pick on stage with Roger Goodell. They will do something different. I'm sure they have something planned with that. But great story. He's been a fun story to follow, and certainly another chapter being written tonight. Okay, our moment of awe is up next.
Listen, were you forced into getting a solar contract and now you just don't want it anymore? Maybe the solar company misled you. Or is your solar contract buried with hidden fees? Are you not saving the amount of money you thought you would on your energy costs? Don't worry. At the Solar Exit Hotline, we can help you cancel your solar contract, even if the panels are already installed. Our experienced legal team will review your contract and help you cancel it, possibly saving you thousands of dollars. You got to call right now for complete details. So listen, if you're not happy with your solar contract for any reason, we are here to help you cancel it. Call the Solar Exit Hotline now for immediate options to help you exit your solar contract. This call is 100% free. Call 855-227-0286. That's 855-227-0286. Call us right now.
Okay, time now for a moment of awe. We go back to on this date in 1954 when Hank Aaron hit his first of 755 Major League home runs. It came in his 7th career game, Braves playing the Cardinals at Old Sportsman Park, when Aaron came to bat in the 6th inning and hitting a solo home run off the Cards' Vic Raschi to aid the Braves in a 7-5 win in 14 innings over the Cardinals in St. Louis. Now, to add some irony to the homer, Aaron also got his very first ever Major League hit off the same Vic Raschi in a game 8 days earlier on April 15th, 1954. Hammerin' Hank, the first of his record-setting then 755 career home runs on this day in 1954. That gets our moment of awe. Thanks so much to our guest today. The Mikes, Mike Waters talking Syracuse sports, Mike DeCourcy talking college basketball. We appreciate you as always. It's a Thursday. Go out and make somebody's day. Say hello to a stranger. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on the SportsIQ.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at SportsIQ LS. We'll see you next time.